Hey, welcome to episode 180 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman, and I just had a frog in my throat, which is an extremely awkward way to start a podcast. But, but enough about the frog in my throat. Today, today is going to be really amazing. You know, people around the globe are envisioning, creating, and working hard to navigate through countless problems to create a kind of world for all of us and for future generations. And why am I telling you this? Because my guest today is one of those people. And between now and when I come back, think about how you also might be one of those people. Be back in a second, but now this.
Today's guest, DJ Nicholson.
Welcome back. DJ Nicholson. No, Nicholson was the former governor of South Dakota. DJ Nicholson is an educational coach with a lifelong passion for education and ensuring that children with autism and related disabilities are engaged and supported in the educational environment. DJ's superpowers include creating unique learning options for children, problem solving for their success, and helping parents see what's possible for their child's best learning. Please welcome to the Awkwardly Awesome podcast stage, DJ Nicholson. I say stage, but that's highly metaphorical because it's a podcast which usually isn't on a stage in any situation, and then there's no stage. So yeah, just think about this being on a stage if that delights you, or let it go if it doesn't. Please welcome DJ Nicholson.
Hello.
Hello, DJ.
Hi. So nice to be here.
Thanks for being here. Where in the world are you? Are you in northern Canada? Is it snowing right now?
It is not. I am down here in beautiful, sunny Florida, United States, in the Tampa Bay area, and it is gorgeous today. It's about 60 degrees.
That sounds like really challenging weather for you.
Yeah, I know. Bright blue sky. It's awesome.
Speaking of challenges, though, we're going to jump right into it if it's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, people are like even outside of the group of parents and children who have outside the group of parents whose children experience disabilities hear the term IEPs, and often when we hear the term IEP, at least for me, stress, I feel some tension. What is an IEP in its most basic sense?
So in the most basic sense, an IEP, or an individual education plan, is designed to meet the needs of an individual child that has a disability. So it's about looking at students as an individual learner, as an individual little person and put in the IEP everything that they need to be successful as an individual. So IEPs really are designed to meet the needs of specific students. It's not cookie cutter, and we don't put in supports without having a purpose for them.
So that all sounds like truly amazing, like giving a broader range of humans a chance to learn and to be the best. It sounds spectacular, like one of the great inventions in the world. But I mentioned I felt stress when I think of IEPs. Where does the stress come in?
Wow.
Oftentimes.
So the stress really comes from so many places. And I think the biggest stressor, at least from the perspective of parents, is the amount of what I would consider legalese or educational terminology that's used that's not necessarily understood or explained to parents. So, parents can go and sit in an IEP meeting, and while they're there to give information about their child, and they're there to collaborate, so much of what they're really doing is trying to understand what the rest of the members of the IEP team are saying, and having it make sense. And so that to me is one of the biggest stressors for parents, is that they're sitting in a meeting and the information is overwhelming because of the terminology. The information is overwhelming because we're talking about supports for their kids, and they want to make sure that their kids are getting the best supports possible that make sense for them. And I think another major stressor, kind of across the board for both teachers and parents, is the transient nature of our educational system. So we have teachers in and out of the classroom. We have teachers retiring early. We have teachers coming in that might not necessarily be skilled in the area of special education. So they have limited knowledge of what's even possible for kids. And so, I always tell parents that, unless you as a parent go out and find what you need to understand the IEP process, to understand what's possible and available for your child, then you're really just limited by the knowledge of the other professionals sitting at the IEP table.
Who? Oh, what were you going to say? Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say that in and of itself, I mean, those two things right there are incredibly stressful and overwhelming.
Who typically will be the other members of the IEP table?
So it will always vary depending on the types of services that kids are receiving outside of typical classroom instruction. So if a child has speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, all of those service providers would be in attendance at the meeting. But generally there's a special education teacher, there's a general education teacher, maybe a school psychologist, a social worker. It really depends on the needs of the child. So I've been, as a teacher and also as a coach, I've sat in meetings where there's 5 people at the table. I've also sat in meetings where there's 15 people at the table.
15? 15?
And that can feel really overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
Would the students ever be? Would the actual student ever be present at the IEP meeting?
Yeah, so quite often, children after the age of 14, which is when kind of those transitional services would begin, the child could be present at the meeting to have a say in their own education. But, even as a teacher, I taught primarily elementary school, and But I would have kids that by the time they were in 5th grade, we talked openly about accommodations and what they needed to be successful. So kids could then feel empowered to ask for what they needed in the classroom if the teacher wasn't providing it.
There's so many avenues here. It's exciting. So putting myself in the shoes of a general education teacher just out of school, I imagine it could be very stressful as a teacher because I have 30 students and I have a student with no diversity, and I want to do right by my 29 other students and do right by my student with no diversity,
Mhm.
and there's a lot going on there.
There is a lot going on there, but I think, number one, it's important for general education teachers to remember that they're not in this alone, and there is someone in their building. It's usually another a special education teacher that is there, kind of in that local capacity person that has knowledge that they can share with the general education teacher. So
That's a good point.
yeah, so that person would definitely be a support in terms of, strategies and tools that they could use, but chances are that special education teacher is also going to be in that classroom for part of the day. And I think the second piece of that is for the general education teacher to know that there are resources out there, whether it's in your local district or through someone like me that I provide local teacher training in my area, that there are people out there that really want to help you be a better teacher in terms of meeting the needs of everyone in your classroom and knowing that not all kids are going to show what they know in the same way. And that's okay. I think that's something in our educational system that we're learning to adjust, and that just because you ask your class to write, a 4-page or a 4-paragraph essay, that doesn't mean that all those essays are going to look the same or be
Mm.
shown the same, or kids are going to show what they know about their writing in the same way. So it's a shift in, I don't know, it goes back to, the idea of universal design for learning, that we're designing instruction that meets the needs of everyone. But universal design is a whole other big topic.
So, so and so tongue tied for a sec. So as this general education teacher just out of school, one of the things I'm concerned about is I want to be able to challenge my student who experiences no diversity, but at the same time, I don't want to overwhelm them and lose them. How do I strike that balance? Because I have no idea what they that they can learn, what they're willing to learn. How
So
do I figure this out?
I think the first piece is always get to know your kids as a teacher. Like, get to know your kids as people first, and take a look at the IEP. So all of the supports that they're going to need are in the IEP, hopefully. And if they're not, if something else comes up that they might need as a support, that can always be implemented in the IEP. But, for all teachers and all kids, I always talk about, presuming competence, that we have to approach kids in believing that they're capable of everything that we're asking them to do, and they're capable of understanding everything that we're explaining to them. even if it doesn't come out in a typical way. So, for example, a lot of kids with autism and other neurodiversities, whether they're typically verbal or not, maybe they use, like an AAC device, it's entirely possible that they're being exposed to really great content in school, that they're, the teacher is presenting information about, um, a piece of American history, and it's going into their brain. And my thing is always like, in the in the spirit of being awkwardly awesome, it spins around in there. And then this knowledge comes out of kids in different ways. So, I think we have to assume that kids are taking in and really learning um, what we're teaching them. And then, again, it goes back to looking at the IEP and seeing what is available in there. And also remembering too that other kids in your classroom as a teacher love to support other kids in the classroom. So to use other kids as, not use them, but to know that other kids are going to be there as peer supports and as a friend to help guide.
Oh my gosh. How, what an idea. How, as a new teacher, can I empower the kids in my classroom to be of support to the student who has no diversity?
And I think I love that question. And I think it's about,
I do too.
setting the stage for what your classroom culture and what your classroom community is going to feel like. Because, I was a teacher for 20 years.
So what do you mean by setting the stage?
So having those conversations with your kids about how, we're different, we're diverse, we all learn different ways, we all have different strengths, we all have something that's challenging for us.
Mhm.
And I know for me as a teacher, when I used to love to create classroom culture, and I think part of what was so critical to me in creating that culture in the classroom, that inclusive, positive culture, was being really open and honest about things that I struggled with. If I was having a tough day, to be honest with my kids and say, you know what, I'm having a really tough day today. I need a little bit of extra kindness. And just, verbally and in other ways, recognizing from the teacher's perspective, recognizing that kids are doing amazing things, and we focus on the process of learning rather than the product. So it's not always about celebrating the kids that got an A, or celebrating everyone that, picked from the treasure box today, but we're celebrating kids for kindness and being really caring to others and helping other people and trying their hardest, that we embed that big piece of kindness and inclusion and belonging into a classroom and a school culture.
So I know, what do you mean by the students who picked from the treasure box today?
Oh, so this is really an elementary school thing. Some teachers have, like, if they have kids that are struggling with behavior or something that they're not supposed to be doing in class, and the teacher is focused on catching kids doing things that they want them to do,
Mm.
that they have, a treasure box at the end of the day where they can come up and pick something from the treasure box, a sticker, a colored pencil, or whatever it might be, as a kind of reward system. I mean, I think a lot of schools are moving away from things like that, but I'm just thinking back in my own teacher journey, because back in 2000, we were still doing that. We still had treasure box.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking back to when I was in grade school, and in high school, and what you're describing in the teachers and in expectations is different than what I experienced. And I'm not saying that I didn't have good teachers. I was blessed to have amazing teachers, but but what I internalized is, and maybe some of this was me, but what I internalized was that my teachers were perfect, strove to be perfect, and that making the highest grade possible was the best thing to do in a classroom. So you're talking about a shift in classroom culture.
When I talk about a shift in classroom culture, it really is the idea of including everyone despite differences. I know when I was in school, it was very much the same way. But the whole idea of who was included in school and who wasn't is very different.
So you're talking about even including the teacher as an authentic person who experiences real human stuff
Right.
instead of as instead of someone to be put on a pedestal.
Right. Yes. So it's the shift in the teacher from being the governor of the classroom to being a facilitator in the classroom. So a facilitator of learning, but also going back to what you said about that authentic piece. I remember this was, many, many years ago, but I remember my getting a phone call at the school. This is before cell phones. I got the school got a call, that was relayed to me that, my dad had been rushed to the hospital and I
Oh
needed
my
to get
God.
there immediately. And I was crying openly in front of my kids in my classroom. But that's the humanness, that's the humanness that to me is so important to bring to the table, that we're people, and we have emotions and we have big feelings, and we make mistakes, and sometimes we have to apologize to students. But I think that in that moment it was just that raw shock and emotionality for me, where I was just completely embraced by my students. And I was working, at the time I was working with high school kids that were really struggling, like gang related type struggles, in impoverished communities. And these kids, these young men, embraced me like their mama. And it was beautiful, and that speaks to culture. It speaks to that connectedness that we have to have with kids. And it to take it back to where we started the conversation about, parents feeling stressed in IEP meetings, that at the end of the day, no matter what we do in school or at home or in our communities, it is about kids. We have to create worlds for kids where they know that they're included and accepted and that they have a place of belonging, disability or no disability. We have lots of kids out there where the only safe place they have is school, where they feel belonging at school, but maybe no place else.
And if we can and if we can impart that 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 they have gifts and that they have purpose in this world, I mean, wow, 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 wow,
Yeah. Everybody
wow.
has a place. I mean, everybody has a place in the world, and everyone has a gift, and everyone has a purpose. And so that's really why we're here, is to help each other, you know, nurture those gifts that we have. I mean, disability or not, neurodiversity or not, everyone has a gift. I mean, here's a good example. There's a little kid in my community, in my town. And when I was a coach at my district down here quite a few years back, he used to love to paint. And he was maybe 8 years old at the time, autistic. And it was very hard for his teacher to get him to really do anything academic in class. He was not really an academic kid. He needed a lot of support. He had modified instruction for learning.
Did he have, was he speaking at this time, or was he nonverbal?
He was not verbal, and he is still not typically verbal, but he is an incredible artist. And he creates these paintings with paint, with oils, with crayons, with marker, with all these different mediums, I guess. I mean, it's colored pencils, it's crayons, it's all of those things. But the work that he creates, he's probably in, I don't know, he's got to be like 19 by now, but he is an unbelievable artist, and he makes a living as an artist. He makes a living as an artist. His work is incredible. Just incredible. I wish I had a piece to show you, but I don't. Just
So recently I was at a conference, in this young man who experiences Down syndrome and his father were speakers, and this young man was the first person with Down syndrome. It gives me goosebumps to think of it. The first person with Down syndrome to complete an Ironman, which is a marathon, like 100-mile bike ride, and I don't know how far they swim. So in both these examples, how do you instill in teachers and in parents the vision that what they see in the young child, that they just don't know what that child can become? How do you instill that sense of wonder, that sense of curiosity, that sense of just admitting we don't know yet?
Right. And I think, it's about nurturing the things that your child is showing you that they're interested in, whether it's painting or digging outside or building with Legos or, whatever, coding on the computer. It's paying attention to that, and also knowing that there's incredible potential in kids, neurodiverse or not. But we have to get to know kids. We have to get to know them and nurture those things that they're gifted in. And, and for the things that they're not necessarily gifted in, presuming that they're learning, even though they're not showing it in a way that's typical.
Okay. I'm teacher fresh out of school again. And you keep saying get to know my kids. How do I have 30 kids. Is 30 a typical number? I keep saying 30.
No, I don't think so. I think it's less than that. I mean, I know, like, for elementary schools, it's usually, I mean, and I'm speaking in Florida terms, 18, and then, later in elementary, 22, 24 kids.
Okay, I have 24 kids. And how do I strike a balance between getting to know them and teaching them, because we could have conversations all day, every day.
Right. Well, it's not necessarily having full conversations every day, but it's about, as a teacher, standing at your door and greeting kids when they come in. You know, looking at them. How are they coming in the morning? Are they coming in a good mood? Are they coming in crying? Are they coming in dirty? Have they had breakfast? It's the little things that teachers can do to get to know their kids.
Mm.
And good teachers, and a lot of new teachers become really good teachers because they do this naturally, is they as they're teaching, they're asking kids, they're asking, what do you already know about this topic? They're
Mm.
talking about background knowledge. They're talking about who's ever had an experience with taxis in New York City. They're on that personal level with kids, because one of the shifts in teaching now is, teachers spend a lot of time teaching in a whole group, all 24 at once. But then there's also a lot of time during the day where kids are working independently, and kids are working with a teacher in a small group. So there is that time during the day, at least in elementary schools, to have that more personal connection with kids and to get to know them on a deeper level. And also knowing, again, like, there's other people that are going to be coming into your room to help support with kids that need that extra support.
Well, this always is very encouraging to me.
Oh,
Very encouraging. But you said personal experience, which was a brilliant segue. So how did your personal experience as a kid in your family lead you to the work you're doing now?
yeah, that's a big question. So growing up, I guess there's two sides of the coin to this. So the first one, which is I think a little bit more simple, is, so I was adopted. I grew up as an adopted kid and everything that goes along with that. So I think, for me personally, like, really deep down, I struggled with a sense of belonging
Hmm.
and a sense of acceptance. I mean, that's true. I'm a middle-aged lady now, and I can openly say, excuse me, that is definitely something that I struggled with in hindsight, is that sense of acceptance and belonging, because I was, I'll use the air quotes again, like, different. But I
Hmm.
think the biggest piece for me is, so while I spend a lot of time supporting parents of kids with neurodiversity, my first experience with parents with neurodiversity were my own parents, because I had a sibling that was very neurodiverse and had multiple diagnoses. And it created, and this, again, like, this was back in the 70s. Um, I'm dating myself. This was back in the 70s. And the amount of support available was negligent. I mean, that my parents had no outside support. My
Oh
sibling
wow.
had, he had special education in school, but back in the 70s, special education laws were just kind of coming into play. So it wasn't nearly as fine tuned as it is now. And, I, looking back, over the course of my childhood and my adolescence and my early adult years, I watched my parents struggle immensely with how to support him, when they had no support.
Oh god.
And for me as a sibling, growing up in, again, in hindsight, what was pretty chaotic at times, like, pretty chaotic. And so I feel like that personal experience that I had, and how that impacted my childhood, how I watched that impact my parents and our whole family structure. Like, it's just, and I know that, when I work with parents now, I focus primarily on learning supports and supports for self-regulation, but it's really making sure that parents have support, that they know that they have a person to come to, that if they don't know the answer, their person, whether it's me or someone else, will help them find an answer, will help them strategize, that they can be part of a community where there's other parents of kids with neurodiversity or other related disabilities, that they can feel like, oh my goodness, like, whew, there are other parents out there that are going through the same thing, and we can help each other, and we can figure out, the best way, and we can, collaborate and have that kind of cooperative opportunity. But for my parents and for me, I mean, there were just disasters. I'll just just disasters. And so it's so personal for me. When people ask me, where did your passion start? I used to say, well, my passion for this started, when I became a teacher. And I had someone challenge me, and
Hmm.
this person said, "Do you think that's true? Do you think like your level of passion for this started when you became a teacher?" I said, "Well, yeah." And he goes, "Okay, well, you might want to think about that. Like, did it come from some other place in your life?" And it was one of those like awkwardly awesome moments for myself where I was like, I had a moment one day, like raking leaves in the backyard, where I thought, oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So it started in infancy, you know, it's super personal. And I think that's where, the purpose and passion for me on earth, that's what it is to make sure that kids feel supported, kids feel accepted and included, and they have that sense of belonging, and that parents have resources and coaches to support them along the way on the journey.
Powerful, very powerful. So, so as a family member, as a friend, as a neighbor to parents with a child who has no diversity, what can we do from the oh what are some things we can do from outside the family structure to offer support and offer kindness, and what are some things that are not helpful?
So things that are not helpful, let's start there, and we'll end on the positive. So,
You want to start that? Okay.
oh yeah, yeah, things that are not positive
I mean,
and not
if
help.
you can think of any, none might come to mind. I'm just teasing.
No, but here's a big one though. I think what's not positive is and not helpful is to judge people based on appearance, and judge people based on a label. That that is one of my biggest pet peeves in the world, that we look at people and we say, oh, she's this or he's that, or oh yeah, she's autistic. Well, I don't know what that is, or that's an obvious disability, or whatever it is, that we judge people before we even have a chance to get to know them. And I think the positive piece of that is that children, I think, are brilliant little ambassadors for how we can be kind to others, regardless of what they look like or labeled as, or what, regardless of difference. Because kids have this approach of, kids play like, back at like old school when we were growing up. We'd knock on a friend's door. Can Michael come out and play? Sure. And we just played. It wasn't there weren't any rules. There wasn't anything. We played for the sake of playing, regardless of who it was. And even when I think back to my childhood, there were definitely like differences in our neighborhood and who we were as little people, but we just didn't care. And I think kids are great at that when we just let kids be kids, and when kids are brought up in a loving home where they have kindness and acceptance and there's open communication, that just leads to like kids just being really cool with other kids. And I think one of the biggest positives, and it goes along with kind of with what I just said, is that as adults we let kids take the lead. And when situations come up, I see it in my neighborhood here all the time, that when kids come up, parents just intervene, and they have those little, like, we call them like teachable moments, and we help kids along the way. We help them a long way. And as parents and as adults, as people in the community, as teachers and school principals, that we model for kids what we want them to be. When I was growing up, at the end of our hallway, there was this big, giant felt plaque. I guess that's what you'd call it, a big felt plaque. It was like this big sign, and it was called "Children Learn What They Live." Okay, and it sticks with me all the time. And it was a whole list of things, like if children live with judgment, they learn this. If children live with hatred, they learn this. It was a whole bunch of different things. But the very last line, and I remember it, it was, if children live with love and acceptance, they learn to find love in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a kid, like
goosebumps.
Walking down that hallway, I would walk down, and interestingly enough, my bedroom was like just to the left of that. So I saw this every single day as a kid.
Wow.
But it resonates with me though, because that's when we as adults live our life like that, that's what kids see. Children learn what they live, and that's just the title of that is really powerful.
Yeah. So as an adult, and I'll use myself as an example. Like any adult coming up to me will be like, "Oh, Jason speaks different," and they might went through some things in the head, quick, almost without thinking about it. Oh, is he drunk? Oh, has he had a stroke? Oh, does he have an intellectual disability? But what I hope is that they'll take a moment and notice that they don't know the answer yet, and take a moment to listen and have a conversation and see what really is up.
Right. They need to get to know Jason.
Can you talk a little about that? How we just make split-second assumptions, but how can we not let that assumption be the absolute way it is, but look beyond that assumption?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think it's when we make those assumptions and those like split-second thoughts in our head, to remember to like reel it back in a little bit and think like, okay, is what I'm thinking true? And what do I know about this person? Like, what do I really know? And am I assuming something based on the way someone talks, or the way they look, or the way they stand, or the way they move? And really reeling it back in and recognizing like, okay, I just made a snap judgment. I need to take a step back and get to know the person first.
I love the terminology, reeling it back in, because so often I feel guilty or ashamed about making that split second judgment, but really it's as simple as noticing it and reeling it back in. There's no need for guilt or shame, but reeling it back in and being curious about what's really going on is all that needs to occur.
Right. And I love the word curious that you just used, because it really is a shift in how we're thinking. I guess I liken it to, I notice something different about a person, just the way that I would notice like a woman with a really put together outfit, or someone that has a really cute dog. Like, it's just things that I notice. And then it becomes just a curiosity. It just becomes part of the human element.
Mm.
It's that experience that we're noticing something different and now we're curious about it.
Mm.
So, this is interesting. I had an experience last year where I broke my heel.
Oh.
I broke my heel in two places, and so I didn't walk for 3 months.
Oh.
And then so I was using a knee scooter. And then by the time I was cleared to walk, I couldn't. So I had to go through PT and rehab and all that, and really learn how to walk again. What was interesting though is when I had to use a walker. I used a walker for a long time, and I laughed about it. And my friends would say, "Wow, DJ, like you move 1,000 miles an hour, and here you are on a walker." But what was interesting, I remember being at the grocery store, and there was a gentleman that walked past me, and he goes, "Why do you have a walker?" And I mean, I didn't know this person at all. And before I even had a chance to say anything, he says, "You're way too young to have a walker." I was like, wow, that's so judgy. Just the judgment of that I was like, wow. And so, but it made me pay attention. It made me pay attention to people that would help me like down a curb. Because I caught myself one time. I got stuck. I got stuck on a curb and I couldn't get down the curb. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stand here until someone can help me down, because I could drive and everything, but I couldn't walk yet. So, but I had to wait for someone to help me like get down the curb. And, someone eventually came along who was very, very kind and helped me, get down. But I think that I was able to appreciate the and really consider what it was like to be someone that people were curious about. Like, they were curious about me because I was using a walker, or curious because I was using a cane. I walked with a cane.
Mm.
And just like, wow, what's that all about? And I always appreciated it when people would come up to me and say, "Oh my goodness, what happened?" Or, "Wow, your purple cane is amazing. Tell me why you use that."
What a neat way to phrase that question. Wow, your purple cane is amazing. Tell me why you use it.
Yeah.
That's really neat. I mean, and there's like so much distance between a question like that and wow, you are way too young to use a walker. So much distance.
Well, because one very, very positive, curious, and very genuine. The other so defeatist. I mean,
And then the other is a massive assumption. Like,
yeah.
like the first, when you ask a question, you gently acknowledge, hey, I don't know the whole story yet. I have no idea why you use a bubble cane, but but this man just just jumped to the conclusion he somehow knew the whole story and
Yeah.
just was off to the races with an assumption.
Yeah. And when I said like that could feel really defeatist, and I guess I meant that because this was a man that had no idea if I was new to a walker, if I had been using a walker my whole life, if I had struggled with the idea of using a walker, if this was really difficult for me, was she in pain? I mean, nothing. There was no consideration on how I would feel when that kind of statement is posed.
Wow.
So it really it's we and this is a whole other topic, but we have to be gentle with people. We have to be gentle and not make those assumptions, and just we can't just blurt things out, because in the blurting there's hurting and you wind up hurting people's feelings that way.
Have you used that phrase before, in the blooding that's hurting?
No.
That's really good.
Yes, thank you.
Really good.
In the blurting there is hurting, and it's true. When we blurt things out without giving it cause to and a pause to think, can be very hurtful. Yeah.
I want to touch on this as we wrap up, because this is a group that's often probably not thought about them that much. I mean, people think about me having something unique going on with a speech impairment.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do you say to students who have been adopted, to help empower them in their lives?
I don't typically share my adoption story with kids in school.
What would you say to a student you knew had been adopted and you knew was struggling with the idea of being adopted and all that?
That's I think that is such a sensitive subject. I don't well, and I should say I haven't had an opportunity to support a child that was openly having conversations about being adopted. I don't know how comfortable I would be in having those conversations, only because I know how complicated it can be from the psychological standpoint.
When you say complicated, what do you mean?
It depends on, the nature of the adoption. It depends on that. Well, there's all kinds of issues there. I mean, there's issues of abandonment. There's issues of attachment. There's the belonging and the acceptance and being a part of a family structure. I tread very, very lightly in those areas, because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a doctor. That I want to be really, really sensitive in those areas, and kind of that's not my wheelhouse.
Just those brief things you said gives a little more a sense of the geography of what a child who's been adopted might be dealing with, and I thank you for saying that, because I mean, it's a geography that's just often not considered,
Right.
and thank you for just giving a little sense of what the geography might be.
Yeah, thank you.
So, DJ, you, since we met a few weeks ago, you've enjoyed the phrase "awkwardly awesome." What do you enjoy about that phrase?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, I love the word awesome. It has been in my vocabulary since I was a little child. And because I was born and raised in Massachusetts, we say wicked awesome.
Wicked awesome.
We
Nice.
say wicked awesome. And just the idea of being awkwardly awesome helps me just completely embrace all the little quirky things about me that I think are awesome, but might feel a little awkward to other people. And I don't care. Love it. I love the idea of being awkwardly awesome.
I love your explanation of that and why you love it. Thank you. And I ask all my guests this, and the experience of talking to you makes me think I should be asking everyone about awkwardly awesome too. But I ask, what does doing your imperfect best mean to you? What it means to me is I envision the best I want to create for my life and to create for the world around me. And then when imperfections come up, instead of being stopped by them saying saying I can't, I try to learn from them and move forward. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, DJ Nicholson?
My imperfect best is, going out there and having conversations and meeting people and doing the tough stuff and just feeling really authentic in myself and not being afraid to make a mistake. Knowing that perfection is not anything that's achievable in any way, shape, or form. And if people are striving for perfection, it ultimately leads to failure. And so my imperfect best is some days is just showing up. Just showing up as myself. Because the people that love me, that connect with me, that work with me, they love my imperfect best. And I think that when we can celebrate each other's imperfect best, then we create a world that is just authentic and amazing and kind and wonderful. I want that for everybody.
I love that. So I was going to end triumphantly with your answer to that question, which was amazing. But then I looked up and saw inclusiveology with DJ Nicholson. I better ask you. I laugh because this is like the most obvious question of the podcast, and I almost missed it. So what does inclusiveology mean to you?
So inclusiveology is a word that I termed. It is the study of inclusion because I firmly believe that every child can be included in learning with the right supports. So I work with parents to kind of unlock things that might be available to their child, get them written into the IEP, and I support parents in really building their knowledge. So when they sit at the IEP table, they feel less stressed, less overwhelmed, and they can sit at a table that feels more collaborative and cooperative. Get
What
everybody included.
what could, as inclusiveology developed through the years, what could the world look like in 100 years if inclusiveology is followed?
Oh, wow. That's an awesome question. It just, it opens up the doors for everyone,
Mm,
regardless of, I mean, if we're going to talk about 100 years from now, then then inclusiveology has grown by leaps and bounds. And
mm,
now we've opened up doors for people with disabilities and different cultures and different races and different
mm,
ethnicities and different everything, like everything that makes people uniquely who they are.
mm,
They get to be loved and celebrated in this beautifully kind, inclusive world.
mm,
That would be one
mm,
amazing legacy to leave.
mm. More goosebumps. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would love to end on that note, but I need to ask how do people find you, learn from your work, get a hold of you?
So people can find me at inclusiveology.com. That's inclusive with an E, ology.com. And I'm also everywhere on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. People can reach out to me personally through my page and through my personal profile. And I also have a business page on Facebook. And if people are on LinkedIn, they can find me on LinkedIn as well.
So just by DJ Nicholson?
On Facebook, I'm actually Dorianne Nicholson because Facebook
Mm.
wouldn't let me do DJ. So I'm Dorianne, which is my real name, and then in parentheses, it's DJ. So they'll find me.
Cool, but on LinkedIn you're DJ
I'm DJ.
Nicholson?
Yeah.
You got it on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah. LinkedIn was much more accepting of me having just DJ because I've been DJ my whole life. So.
I'm so jealous because as Jason Freeman, no one's accepted. There's a lot of Jason Freemans in the world. So, thank you so much for your vision, for your kindness, and how you help parents see bring out the best in their children, and how you help young people learn as they're meant to learn and see the best in themselves. Thank
Thank you.
you for being you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks. Wow. Well, do I look like one big goosebump right now? No, I'm looking at myself in the video image, and I still look like me. I hope you enjoyed that. I sure did. And in this conversation makes me think once again about going with your gut and in reaching out to new people, even if you don't know them. I was introduced to DJ by a man who sent me a random email on LinkedIn wanting to get to know me. So I didn't know this guy, and he wanted to introduce me to DJ, who I didn't know at all. But I mean, just because we don't know people yet doesn't mean they're not amazing people. If I had said, "Oh, I don't know DJ," I would have never. I don't know DJ, and I'm not going to get to know her. I would have never had this amazing conversation, and you would never be listening to this amazing conversation. So anyway, I'm getting long-winded for a guy who once was ashamed to speak at all. So I'll let you go, but thanks for tuning in whether you're tuning in live or on replay, and please leave comments if you're inspired. We love comments. And thanks for being you and the unique presence you bring to the world. Have a great day. And I don't know why I sang that. That was a little odd.